Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast. This is Bruce Hutchin, host and executive producer. Each week, you will hear tips, techniques, strategies, and personal stories from some of the best and funniest whitetail hunters in North America. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you do, tell a friend on social media. If not, tell me and I'll make it better. Thanks for listening, folks. Hey, we welcome Dave Schuler to the show today. And Dave's going to talk to us about being a reborn hunter. What's that all about? When he was a young kid, he used to go hunting with his friends, neighbors, father, cousins. Took his BB gun out and did some hunting, took his 22 out, did some hunting, took a shotgun out, did some hunting. Well, all that changed. He got into the military and he kind of drifted away from hunting. And then a friend of his invited him on an Arizona elk hunt. Anybody's hunted elk in Arizona, you know that's one heck of a hunt. And then Dave got so primed up for it, he picked up a bow and started shooting his bow and starting putting in for that Arizona tag. And he also got involved on the conservation side of the business and is very active in the Arizona Elk Society, and also started his little business himself called Twisted Juniper Outdoors. Dave's got a lot going for him, and I can't wait to share his story with you. Hi, folks. This is Bruce Hutchin, your host at Whitetail Rendezvous, and I'm meeting with Dave Schuler today. Dave hails out of the Phoenix area, but he's done a little traveling in his life, and we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about the hunting tradition. We're going to talk about giving back, and we're also going to talk about Twisted Juniper Outdoors. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's just start off. How's a guy from the Midwest, get out to Phoenix and figure out that he wanted to start hunting again?
Well, how I made it from out there to out here is after high school, I joined the Marine Corp, and after I served my time and got honorably discharged, ended up settling here in Phoenix because my wife at the time, her family was here, and we wanted to have my youngest son, well, my oldest son, at the time, get to kind of know her family, his grandparents, and then also I was going to go to ASU to be a phys ed teacher. And well, after a handful of years, life had other plans, and here I am with two children in Arizona, happily remarried, and just taking Arizona for what it's worth. And it's definitely some of the more beautiful landscape that I've seen. So that's pretty much how I've ended up here.
Yeah, we talked about some of those elk uh, sheds up on your wall, and they're kind of unique. And one, as you said, looked like a spear. Where'd you find those?
Up, you know, I guess the no tell 'em creek is the best way to put them, but because 3 out of the 4 years I've gone elk hunting up there and kind of know where they're at, and my friend and I both successfully filled our tags last year. But yeah, I was up there on the Mogollon Rim area, and actually, ironically, that the spear that the spear shed is what I call it. I actually kind of use that as a logo for a shirt that I designed, and I guess we'll talk about later. But it's it's definitely something that you won't see that often. So
Well, good for you. So let's talk about the hunter tradition, and you kind of drifted away and kind of left it. Then all of a sudden, you're back into it. How did that all work out?
well, I grew up hunting and fishing I grew up in Cincinnati, and then also the Southwest Ohio, Northern Kentucky area. I grew up on it just because that's what my dad he did. He was passing down the traditions that were passed on to him, and I'd spend my summers fishing for catfish, and the winters and falls going for rabbit, squirrel, and deer if I could. Didn't do a lot during my teen years just because I was very involved in sports, but whenever I had the chance, I was out there doing something. Um, I was able to bag my first whitetail with a muzzle loader, which is not something most people can't say these days. But yeah, and like I said before, after the Marine Corps, I joined the Marine Corp, and after I got out, I kind of just settled here in Arizona. And at the time, it just wasn't something that was, you know, I guess the opportunity here in Arizona wasn't something that I was aware of. Growing up in a private land atmosphere, I just never was aware of the opportunities that were here in Arizona as far as the public land. And the past couple of years ago, I guess what really kind of kick-started the I guess like say the vigor and the interest of going back into the hunting and fishing was I had done some fishing here and there at some of the community ponds and some of the small lakes with my kids, but as far as the hunting, uh, for a wedding present, my good friend that I've known for roughly about 10, 11 years since I lived here in Arizona, he got drawn for elk. And he for whatever reason, I guess through an accident, he broke his phone and he lost the directions to my wedding. And he no showed me, and so he kind of felt bad, so he invited me to go on the elk hunt with him. And I guess what you call one of those happy accidents, because it kicked that fire and got me back into doing what I grew up doing. And so here I am. And especially now with my children, I have a son who's 15, and he's heavily involved in sports like I was, and I have a younger son as well who loves fishing, and he's a crack shot. He's not so much ready to go hunting yet, and I'm not going to force it on him until he's ready. But having kids at the ages that they are, it relates a lot to what um, I went through growing up. And that's kind of what a lot of people will go through, especially with their kids. And having my sons around and getting them involved in programs, which has also helped expose me and educate me to a lot of the other organizations and just offerings that Arizona has. And so that's kind of where it says, when I was just telling you earlier, it's kind of like a hunter reborn. So kind of where we're at.
Now, when you lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, or in that area of the country, did you ever hunt whitetails?
Yeah, yeah. Whenever I got the chance, wasn't successful so much younger, but yeah. I mean, my dad, he's got 100 acres in northern Kentucky, and I just had a conversation with him a month or two ago, about 2 months ago, or whenever the season. Actually, no, it's longer than that. But he lives in Zone 1, so he can bag 4 doe a year, and he's always telling me, "Hey, you got another bag of jerky out your way." So I grew up doing it, and yeah, I bagged my first whitetail with a muzzle loader, which was fun. So I grew up doing it. In Arizona, there's not so much. There's the Coos whitetail in the southern portion, but haven't really gotten back around to going for them. Actually, I'm going mule deer hunting, archery. I got an archery tag this weekend. I'll be heading out to, and last weekend was dove. But yeah, I grew up doing the whitetail, and going for a Coos deer whitetail is on the list. And also what's on the list is, once my son gets out of high school, I want to go back to Kentucky and take him whitetail hunting, so that way we can have a 3 generation hunt.
Wow. Now, where are you going mule deer hunting?
Up on the Mogollon Rim. Uh, Same zone that I go elk hunting. My friend and I, we go elk hunting, so we know the area pretty well. And every time we're up there looking for elk, and we're always finding deer. And when we go up there looking for deer, we find the elk. So hopefully we can kind of get everything on the same page this time.
Now, is that an archery hunt, muzzleloader? What kind of hunt is it?
It's over the counter archery. So that's what we're going for. And a lot of the zones right now are over the counter archery. So that's what we're doing. We didn't get drawn for the prime rut hunt, but there's a lot of good hunting, especially in northern Arizona, over the counter. So we're going to try to take advantage of it this weekend.
Yeah, what does good hunting mean to you?
Just getting out there and having an opportunity. It's kind of like what Fred Bear says. If you focus on the kill rather than the hunt, you kind of lose the perspective. And yeah, I kind of went against went paraphrase that a little bit, but a good hunt is just being able to get out there, experience the outdoors, and just taking it for what the outdoors gives you.
Now, your archery hunting, what kind of bow do you use?
I grew up on bear, and I haven't found a reason to stray away from it. I know a lot of people say PSE or Hoyt or Matthews, but I shoot bear. I like it, and you know that's just what I'm going to go with for now. It's kind of like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So,
That's for sure. Now, what's your favorite technique when you're hunting mule deer?
well, out here in Arizona, uh, it you're going to have to do a lot of spot and stock, but also you have to do a lot of glassing, which is something that is was foreign to me growing up in the Midwest, where you just kind of sit in a tree stand and wait for the deer to come to you, or in a blind. Out here, you don't really have that opportunity, so that's kind of the best way we're going to approach it, especially since you know the the landscape is so different. You kind of have to tailor your hunt to what we have, and that's pretty much the best way. Is just to do your glassing and and then spot and stock where you can.
No, you got plans to elk hunt. You got plans to archery hunt for mule deer. Now that all brings you, right into the game. What's the driving force for you for being a hunter?
It's I guess the best way to put it, especially the way things are going this day, is it's kind of like just a primal instinct. Uh, you, know, you just I feel more at one with nature, and especially the way things are going. And I know Phoenix, and especially Arizona, is becoming one of the more urbanized. I think it's like the second most urbanized state in the union right now. It's almost, I think the best way to put it is probably almost like more like passive domestication, and I just don't feel like you know, being forced to get my food from a grocery store. So I want to have a little bit more control about that. But also, it's just being one with the outdoors. That's kind of what pushes me to do it. And then also, it's one of those intrinsic feelings, but it's hard to explain, but people understand, especially if you are a hunter or an angler. So that's it's like I said, it's hard to put into words, but it's just being at one with nature. Um, you know, and just you kind of find yourself when you're alone is probably a good way to put it as well. So yeah,
What about the boys? Why are they just wanted to be with dad? So if dad hunts, they're going to hunt, or do they really understand what hunting is?
my older son does. Yeah, I got him his own bow a couple years ago, only because an ex coworker of mine was dumb enough to bet me $20 a shot at a trap shoot, and I ended up walking away with $400. But
Woo!
yeah, he choked in the second round. It was quite funny. But yeah, he gets it. As I said, they grow up hunting and fishing. Wherever we go back to Kentucky, they have that opportunity to do that. But my older son, he understands it. My younger son, he's got Asperger's, so uh, you know you kind of have to tailor to what he's comfortable with. He likes to go hunting. He likes to go. No, I'm sorry. He likes to go fishing. Uh, he's really accurate when shooting a 22 or a BB gun. But as far as the hunting, it's almost like trying to train a squirrel to do a backflip. As far as his patience, so I kind of tailor that to how he's ready. But he loves being outdoors, and so just seeing their interest. Like if I take them to a youth camp, and they've both been to some youth camps and outdoor skills camps, and so just to have their joy and their experience, it gets them off the electronics and gets them away from the city, just back out into the nature where just kids can be kids and just have fun and do some skills that they might not be able to have the luxury of doing here in the suburban environment.
That's great. And it's good to see you, investing your time, into the kids and helping them understand, what being outdoors is all about. Now, you do a lot of, work with conservation groups, the Arizona Elk Foundation, I believe the Rocky Elk Foundation. So, tell me about why that's important to you.
Well, yeah, like I said, I've been a member of the Arizona Elk Society for about 4 years now. Haven't really been active until about this past past handful of months, I did what they put on a very very good program. It's called Wild in the City, where they will teach. It's like a 1 day outdoor skills camp for urban youth that don't get the opportunity to go hunting and fishing so much, and so they'll put on clinics where they can do wildlife identification, um, the tracks, glassing, archery, air gun, uh, depending on where they're at, outdoor skills, outdoor bracelets, and so that's kind of that's definitely something. Now with the Arizona Elk Society, they have their hands in a lot of stuff, not just related to elk, but just to the wildlife and conservation in general. They have a Sawyer program where they can help thinning some of the underbrush and riparian areas, as well as also riparian repairs, water catchment repairs. They have a program called Hunt for Heroes, where they take uh, wounded veterans that are, I think it's above 40% disability, that just can't get out and do the outdoor experiences. So they will have tags donated to them to where they can go out and take disabled veterans hunting and kind of help assimilate them back into the world and find a sense of meaning, which is very good. And I mean, the list can go on and on. So I would definitely recommend people to go to the Elk Society. It's www.elksociety, ArizonaElkSociety.org, to check out a lot more of what they do. And then uh, also through that, I've got to know some other people, and some through other organizations like the Phoenix Varmint Callers. Um, they're very, they're, they're a smaller group, but their primary focus is predators. And unfortunately, uh, they lost a board member over the weekend, um, who ended up passing away. And his name was Ray Everidge. And I didn't really know him too much, but he was at a lot of the youth camps that the Phoenix Farm Cars, they partnered with the Elk Society, and he was always there doing a lot of the wildlife identification. And I didn't really get to know him too much, but I was able to talk to him in passing. And he was just, from what I could tell, he was just a great guy who put his heart and soul into conservation and mentoring and teaching. Um, so, and he was actually working on a Hunt for Heroes uh, style hunt as well, for wounded veterans in partnership with the Elk Society. Because in Arizona, predator has you don't need a tag for predators. Predators is open, is year round. So that's something that, in his passing, the Elk Society and the Phoenix Farmer Callers and some other um, organizations are going to try to keep his work alive and try to keep that going. And then also, on the, I guess, the more national front, the Backcountry hunters and anglers, I've gotten involved with them. They have an Arizona chapter, but like I said, I didn't. Growing up in the East Coast, I I was surrounded with private land. This whole public land was completely foreign to me, and just knowing, just looking it up and just seeing some of the numbers of the public land that, especially Arizona offers, is like over 32 million, where Kentucky has, about 800,000 public land acres. Ohio has, about 650,000 public acres, and I said it's a definite foreign to me. And so just knowing that all this public land is accessible to anybody uh, is, something that you once you realize that, you don't want to lose it or take that for granted. And so, that kind of it's the reason why I, try to join the backcountry hunters and anglers, and try to excuse me, you know stay abreast and stay involved in the national level. So those were just some of the organizations uh, that I've joined, like some local front, and then also try to stay abreast in some of the national front as well. So uh, just like I said before, just knowing the resources that are at our disposal, don't want to lose sight of that. So that's
Thanks
also
for
something
that.
that, yeah.
Let's talk about Twisted Juniper Outdoors. It sounds like that was an offshoot of all of these conservation programs.
Yeah, it was. I don't have, much time. I'm spread pretty thin through, uh, taking my sons hunting and also like two of my wife's younger brothers. I got them involved last spring with javelina and rabbit and trying to slowly work them into the mix. Also just work and just being a dad. Like I said, my son's he football and he's varsity wrestler as a sophomore. So my time is always going to go towards my family first and hunting and second. So I'm going to go second. But don't have much time, don't have much money. And like I said before the podcast started, Twister Juniper Outdoors kind of started out to be something just like my own, like a hunting and fishing page of just my activity. But then um, you know, tried to it just started to morph into something a little bit more uh, a way of giving back to some of the foundations that have and organizations that have kind of helped me get to where I'm at right now. So like I said, it's kind of like a soft opening. I've got a website going on with some shirts that I've designed a little bit. Each one, each shirt, 25% of the of all profits are going to go to organizations for each shirt that I have right now, and because I don't have, like I said before, I don't have much time, I don't have much money, but this is something that I feel that I can help, give back and try to help other programs that have helped me, and hopefully they can help out uh, other people along the way.
So, what are some of the programs that would be recipient of some funds that come through you?
Well, Arizona Elk Society's Hunt for Heroes, being a veteran, uh, that means something to me, and so it helped those, and I have a lot of friends that were wounded veterans, and so the Semper Fi Fund, Fisher House, to name some of the few, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, Arizona Game and Fish. The list goes on and on. So I can pull up the list right here. So you know, got the Semper Fi Fund, the Gary Sinise Foundation, Arizona Elk Society, the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. Um, so there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of programs out there that have kind of helped me get where I'm at, and it's being through a veteran and also conservation locally, and especially some on the national front, that'll help, you know, it help give back in some way, and then also education and information dissemination as well.
When you think about elk hunting there in Arizona, any similarities to hunting deer, whitetails?
No, not really. Just because like I said before, with mule deer, the methods are kind of the same. I mean, I would, I think a lot of people would love, uh, if you could just sit in a tree stand and have an elk come to you, but it just doesn't work that way. So the similarity, just based on topography, doesn't really afford us to have that option, from what I've learned. Um, so that's no, I assume the spot and stock and the glassing is probably going to be the best way for to approach elk rather than sitting in a tree stand, especially with the landscape here.
So, how far are you spotting elk from it? Is it a mile, 2 miles, or
With a good enough spotting scope, yeah, you're going a handful of miles, um, and then you just got to decide, is it worth the trek, and is it a possible trek? Um, and so yeah, I mean, with the spotting scope, yeah, you're looking at a couple miles with pair of binoculars, maybe one. So yeah, that's pretty much, yeah. Depending on how far it is and how good your optics are, is going to dictate that.
now you mentioned you see an elk and you got to decide if you want to go get them. How do you do that?
Uh, well, I mean, some people like to laugh, like, okay, is how big is there a ravine down there that you have to go through? How long is it going to take to get over there? Where's the truck? There's a lot of things, and then you know, it's there's a lot of factors, but it also depends on what day of the season it is. If it's the first day, you're probably going to pass. Is it going to be a last day? I think you might want to just fill that tag and get it over with. So, as far as what I've come across is, there's several factors, and like I said, it's the terrain to get there, and you know, and is it by yourself? What's the temperature? Are you going to be able to cool the ice? I mean, are you not to cool the ice? Are you going to be able to cool the meat? Get it out as well. So those are just some of the things that I've come across.
Yeah, folks have told me that there's a lot of roads in Arizona, and some places, they're mile square sections. How about it in the area you hunt? Are you close to roads?
The area I go is a national forest. There's some roads. That's the one thing with elk is, especially during the rut and post rut, they try to get away from those roads, so that can make some of your hiking a little bit more treacherous. But yes, there's some areas where you're hiking pretty good. Um, I've assisted on some of those. I didn't have a tag myself, but there can be. Like I said, I hunt national forest area where there are some roads. Um, but even then, there's a lot of pretty monstrous draws and whatnot. So I think a lot of it also depends on where you go. But where I'm at, the northern part of the zone is a lot of flat sagebrush juniper, but the southern tip is a lot of valleys and draws, which can be pretty rough. So it kind of depends on that.
Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. We've covered a lot of information. Any questions for me or anything else you'd like to share with my listeners?
Um, no, I mean, as far as the information that goes and whatnot, the best things I like to say to people is get involved with you know local organizations on what you have to offer at home in your home state, especially on the national front as well. Pay attention. Um, you know, those would probably be the best things I'd have to say as far as that.
Hey, folks, before we leave, Dave wants to give some shout outs to friends and neighbors and groups. So, Dave, have at it.
Yeah, I'd like to say definitely for you to giving out this podcast. Definitely, there's not a you know you definitely help bring forefront some of the common people out there. The excuse me, the average day man that's out there. It helps give them a voice. I would definitely appreciate that first and foremost. I'd like to give a shout out to the guys at Big Game Utah. They've there's some really cool guys, little small market guys that are trying to get up and going as well. Um, you know, uh, definitely want people to check out Ryan Brashear. He's an up and coming country artist down there in Nashville, and he's an avid hunter as well. So definitely check him out. But I guess those would probably be some of the best, some of the shout outs that I'd like to go ahead and give out right now. But like I said, before I mentioned Arizona Elk Society, Phoenix Farmer Crawlers, the guys in the Arizona chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. And yeah, I mean, those are the ones off the top of my list. And pretty much anyone out there that's definitely had a part in, you know, anything that's helped me, and definitely get out there and just not everybody knows everything, so get out there and help people. So yeah.
Thanks so much for that. And again, Dave Schuler, thank you so much for being a guest on Whitetail Rendezvous. And from thousands of listeners to the show, it's people like you that make it a very interesting show, an informative show, and we're all a little bit different, and I think that's good. So, sir, thank you so much for your time today.
All right, thank you.
Very pleased and privileged to have Blake Alma join us. Blake Alma started out in the outdoor media world with a blog called The Art of an Outdoorsman. From there, he went directly to a radio show called The Outdoors Men's Art Radio Show. Then he was asked by the Survivalist Daily to write some articles. Then he was invited to the Hunt Channel to do some interviews. How has he done all this? Well, if you listen to the show, he's going to tell you. Oh, by the way, he turned 17 this month. So there's no excuses.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.